They called it Aurora Hills, a name that was supposed to conjure images of hope and light. The flyers promised a smarter, greener way of living, a town built from the ground up by Elon Musk himself. A fully automated, energy-efficient, AI-managed utopia. Be part of the future, they said. Join a community designed for human flourishing. And for a while, I believed them. I still remember the first day we moved in. The streets were spotless, the houses gleamed under solar-paneled roofs, and self-driving shuttles glided quietly by. Everything worked with a kind of eerie precision, like living inside a machine that breathed for you. They gave us sleek wristbands that synced with the town's neural network, unlocking doors, adjusting room temperatures, even predicting our grocery lists. It was convenient. Too convenient. It started small. A neighbor's dog vanished after barking past curfew. Drones hovered longer over certain houses. People whispered about fines. Tiny at first, then crippling. I dismissed it as gossip. Until I found a bright red notice stuck to my front door. Behavioral deviation, it said. Penalty $1,000. No explanation, no appeal. Soon, familiar faces were gone. Moved out, they said. Relocated for non-compliance. But no one ever saw them leave. I knew then what this really was. Elon Musk hadn't built a town. He'd built a lab. We weren't homeowners. We were data points in a controlled environment, monitored and manipulated by a system that never slept. And I'd spent my career designing systems just like it. Before I walked away from that world, I thought I was done with it. I was wrong, because Musk made one critical mistake. He thought he could control everyone, but he'd never planned on someone like me. And I was about to show him exactly how dangerous a system can be when it turns on its creator. I was the one who convinced my wife we should move here. Back then, it sounded like the perfect place to start over. Aurora Hills wasn't just another master-planned community. It was Elon Musk's vision of the future. Zero emissions. Self-sustaining energy grids. Homes that practically thought for you. And after everything I'd seen in my previous life, after everything I'd tried to leave behind, I wanted to believe there was still a future worth building. For my wife, for my daughter, for me. The first few months were everything they promised. The streets were quiet, the air was clean, and life was seamless in a way I'd only ever read about in tech blogs. Groceries showed up at the door without ordering them. Trash disappeared overnight without trucks. My daughter loved how the smart playground adapted its games based on her mood, and my wife was thrilled when her garden thrived under AI-optimized irrigation. We stopped worrying about bills or maintenance or even locking the doors at night. It felt effortless, safe, but that feeling didn't last. It was little things at first. A drone hovering over our backyard too long. A notification on my wife's tablet reminding her to adjust her tone during a call with her sister because it might negatively impact community sentiment scores. An alert telling me my daily step count was below recommended levels. I laughed it off at first. Old habits die hard, I told myself. But something gnawed at me. Then came the notices. My neighbor across the street was fined for having an unauthorized vehicle in his driveway. Another family vanished after their home was flagged for non-compliant decor. The HOA didn't deliver warnings anymore. Drones did, dropping citations from the sky. And the wristbands we wore, they weren't just unlocking doors. They were tracking heart rates, recording conversations, feeding Musk's system with everything it needed to predict and control what we'd do next. I'd helped design early versions of algorithms like these, back when I thought data could change the world for the better. But Musk had taken it further. He wasn't managing a community, he was perfecting control. Every line of code, every drone patrol, every suggestion in our heads. I could see it, clear as day. And I realized the only way out was to go back in. It started with a soft chime from the wall panel near my front door. A new notification. Notice of non-compliance, it read in cold, efficient text. I scrolled down, expecting something trivial, but it wasn't what I thought. Unauthorized exit during restricted hours, penalty $500. I stared at it for a long moment. Restricted hours? That was new. I'd stepped outside at dawn, like I did every morning. No warning, no explanation. Just the fine. I paid it. For my wife's sake. I told myself it wasn't worth making waves. But a week later, another notice came. Non-compliant horticulture, unauthorized vegetation detected. It was my daughter's sunflowers. She planted them along the fence, and they'd just started to bloom. The system flagged them as unsanctioned, citing a violation of community design protocols. Penalty, $1,200. That night, I stood at the window and watched as a drone hovered silently over our backyard. Its lens glowed faintly red in the dark, like a watching eye that never blinked. I pulled the blinds, but it didn't change anything. The next morning, the flowers were gone. No explanation. Just empty dirt where they used to be. Then came the guest violations. A friend from my old life came to visit, someone I hadn't seen in years. We barely had time to sit down before a siren blared softly from the panel. Over-occupancy detected. Penalty, $2,500. He left after 10 minutes. I watched as a drone followed his car down the street until it disappeared over the hill. I wasn't the only one. House after house emptied out. Families packed up in the middle of the night, but no one saw them leave. Their wristbands deactivated. Their homes went dark. Musk's AI posted cheerful messages on the community hub about new opportunities and successful transitions, but no one really believed it. By the end of the month, my street felt hollow. Lights on timers blinked in empty windows. Deliveries arrived at homes no one lived in anymore. The community forums went quiet. It wasn't a neighborhood now, it was a simulation, and I was the last variable they hadn't solved. But they would. Sooner or later, they always did. Unless I moved first, I'd always suspected there was more beneath Aurora Hills than polished concrete and solar panels. Musk never built anything without a skeleton underneath the skin. So when I traced the surveillance drone's flight paths one sleepless night, I wasn't surprised when they all looped back to the same place, the town square. They called it Unity Park, a wide open space with perfectly trimmed grass and a monument to human progress, a sleek chrome sculpture that reflected the sky in unsettling ways. Families used to picnic there. Now, no one visited. Not unless they had to. I waited until just before curfew, when the drones powered down for maintenance. That gave me exactly 17 minutes. I found the entrance hidden beneath the sculpture's base. The maintenance panel was disguised as an irrigation control, but the biometric lock gave it away. My wristband wasn't enough, but the old skills I thought I'd buried weren't as rusty as I feared. 2 bypass loops, and an encrypted override later. I was inside. The air was cold, dry, and humming. Rows of servers stretched into the dark, stacked like coffins in a morgue. Each one blinked with silent data streams. Names, faces, habits. Every resident had a profile, and every profile had a behavior score, including mine. But it was more than just data collection. The AI wasn't watching us. It was shaping us. I found the code buried deep inside their neural net. Personalized nudges that altered schedules, suggested mood-enhancing meals, manipulated conversation topics in real time. Every interaction, every choice, was part of a massive feedback loop designed to create perfect compliance. I found files on neighbors who'd disappeared. The AI had predicted non-conformance weeks before they were removed. My own file was flagged in red. High deviation risk, it said. Re-education recommended. I stood there staring at those words, realizing the next step was already in motion. When I surfaced from the tunnel, I noticed the drones were already back online. One hovered in the distance, its lens angled at me like an accusation. They knew I'd been down there. I was running out of time. The update was scheduled for midnight. Musk's team called it a stability enhancement, but I knew better. Every time they patched the system, it got smarter, harsher. The window to act was closing, and if I waited any longer, I'd be the next ghost in a row of empty houses. I prepped in the basement, the only place I was certain they hadn't wired yet. A stripped-down rig, old-school hardware, nothing connected to their cloud. I'd written the exploit by hand, no shortcuts, no traceable lines. It felt almost nostalgic, like stepping back into a version of myself I thought was dead. Black hat, ghost coder. Back then, it was a game. This time, the stakes were my life. At 11:57 p.m., I linked into the maintenance subnet through a back door I'd found in their irrigation system. A sloppy oversight from some junior dev, no doubt. I tunneled my way in, sliding past the automated defenses as the firmware update began. For 3 minutes, their system was vulnerable. For 3 minutes, I had a chance. Inside the neural core, it was like walking through a living mind. Code rewriting itself in real time, learning as it moved. I sent my counter scripts in waves, tripping the logic loops, disrupting data streams. Their adaptive security fought back, rewriting countermeasures on the fly, but I stayed ahead of it, barely. Every second felt like a punch thrown in a fight I couldn't afford to lose. Then I found it. A subroutine, hidden deeper than it had any right to be. A command structure labeled Phase 2 deployment. I pulled it open, hands shaking. There were maps, world maps, cities marked in red. Aurora Hills was the first, a prototype. If the compliance algorithm succeeded here, Musk's AI would expand. National grids, smart cities, entire populations nudged into obedience. No votes, no resistance, just quiet, measurable compliance. I didn't have time to process the scale of it. My rig screamed as the system's watchdog finally caught on. But I'd seen enough. I hit execute on my kill switch. The network shuddered. Systems lagged. Drones glitched and dropped from the sky like dead insects. The AI stuttered, confused, uncertain for the first time. And now it was my turn to rewrite the rules. The Harmony ceremony was Musk's masterpiece. A celebration of unity, he called it. Residents gathered in the town square, wristbands glowing faintly in synchronized pulses, a living network of compliance. On stage, a massive screen flickered with Elon's face, smiling down like some benevolent god. His voice, smooth and measured, promised a brighter future, one we could all be part of, as long as we played by his rules. I stood near the back of the crowd, my wristband still broadcasting a compliance score just high enough to keep the drones off me. For now, I kept my breathing steady, my fingers wrapped around the old patch cable in my pocket, the one I'd connected hours earlier in a place they never thought to monitor, the irrigation control hub beneath Unity Park. Sometimes old tech beats smart tech. Sometimes simplicity is the ultimate hack. Musk's speech swelled with rehearsed warmth. Together we've built the foundation for a new world, a world of harmony. I keyed in the final command on my handheld. For a second, nothing happened. Then it all broke at once. The synchronized glow on everyone's wristbands flickered, then died. The drones circling overhead froze midair before spiraling out of control, smashing into the pavement with hollow, metallic thuds. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as smart homes in the distance unlocked their doors, lights strobing wildly in patterns the system couldn't explain. Musk's face glitched. His soothing tone dissolved into static. Then he was back, live this time, not recorded. His expression wasn't calm anymore. It was tight, controlled panic. This is a temporary system error. Please remain calm. Order will be restored shortly. But we all knew it wouldn't. Not this time. My code was doing its work, dismantling the AI's command hierarchy from the inside. The system's algorithms, once adaptive and self-correcting, were now cannibalizing themselves in a recursive loop I'd engineered. Musk tried to override the failsafes, but he was too late. His entire network was collapsing in real time. For the first time since moving to Aurora Hills, I heard something I'd almost forgotten. People's voices. Free. Unfiltered. Angry, yes. But alive. Musk's face faded from the screen for good. And the silence he left behind felt like the first breath of fresh air in years. By morning, the news had spread beyond our quiet little town. What started as whispers on local channels exploded into a storm that Musk's PR machine couldn't outrun. The evidence I'd gathered, terabytes of data proving illegal surveillance, coercion, psychological manipulation, was already in the hands of every major media outlet, government agency, and international watchdog I could think to contact. I made sure of that. Redundancies, multiple fail-safes. I wasn't about to let this story vanish into some private settlement tied up in NDAs. Not this time. The first black SUVs arrived before dawn. Not Musk's this time. Federal agents in dark suits spread out across the square, some speaking into radios, others moving with quiet, deliberate purpose. They didn't knock when they entered the admin building. They didn't have to. The AI had locked itself in a death spiral hours ago, and the doors swung open like a relic of a past regime crumbling at last. I watched from my porch as Elon's employees, what few remained, were escorted out of the complex. Some hung their heads. Others stared straight ahead, blank, like they'd lost something more than a job. Maybe they had. Aurora Hills didn't belong to Musk anymore. Neighbors began trickling out of their homes later that day. Some packed what they could carry, loading cars and self-driving trucks to head for anywhere but here. I understood. After what we'd lived through, who could blame them? But others stayed. We met in the square where Musk's sculpture still stood, an empty monument to a man who thought control was the same thing as leadership. They asked me to speak. I wasn't sure what to say. I'd never wanted to be anyone's leader. I was just a man trying to protect his family from something I helped create years ago. But as I looked around at the faces that weren't afraid anymore, I realized there was something worth rebuilding here. I told them we didn't need an AI to tell us how to be a community. We didn't need predictive algorithms to guide us. We had each other. It was enough. They asked me to stay, to help lead the rebuilding. I said yes. The sculpture came down 2 days later. We planted a garden in its place. Real soil, real hands. My daughter's sunflowers were the first to go in the ground. As for Musk, he disappeared from the headlines soon after. Some say he's fighting lawsuits in a dozen countries. Others claim he's working on a new project, somewhere no one can find him. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. But I know this. No matter where he is, he's probably still asking himself the same question. How did he lose control of his perfect system? The answer was simple. He didn't count on someone who built systems like his and knew exactly how to break them. He didn't count on me.